Hello, beautiful people. Welcome, welcome, welcome to the next episode of Puhpowee Talks. I'm so happy you're here. My name is Agata. I'm your host. I'm a full time nomad and I'm totally in love and fascinated by exploring our world outside and the one that we have inside of us, the beautiful infinite universe that you can just go on and try to understand. Anyway, today I wanted to finally talk about what is Puhpowee. So the name that the podcast has, and also it's the name of my clothing brand I'm currently working on. And I thought, wow, maybe it's a perfect opportunity to kind of touch about what is it, what does it mean. And before I get to explaining what's the meaning of the word itself and how it came to my life, which was also very magical story, very serendipitous, something that you couldn't really plan or try to grab with your thinking mind. It just kind of happened, as everything. So I want to give you a little bit of context. As I mentioned, Puhpowee also stands for the name of my clothing brand. And right now I'm working on releasing the first ever collection, let's say, but it's only one design, very specific design, that will be released probably in upcoming week or so. It's very special to my heart. It's only second design under Puhpowee brand and a first one that will be accessible for you to actually get. The first batch, let's say, and the first design only went to two of my friends that were supporting me in the process. And this one, I decided to share it with the world, I don't know, I've been wearing my own t-shirt and it just made me happy every single time I wore it. And I decided, okay, this is the time maybe to share that with the world. And it will be very special. Only 11 long sleeves are in the existence. My philosophy behind my brand is that it will never be more than this. Once the design and specific look of the thing that I'm releasing, it will never be produced more. So it's a very special occasion for me, to be honest. There are only 9 shirts left even before releasing the news to the public, I guess. And yes, the name of the brand, it's Puhpowee. Puhpowee. What does Puhpowee actually mean for me? Or actually, you know what? Let's start. What does Puhpowee mean? The literal translation, it comes from one of the languages of Native Americans, and it stands for the force that causes mushrooms to push up from the earth overnight. And let me tell you, it's beautiful analogy to how life works, how beautiful things exist in your reality, and I just see it so much in everyday life, basically. Puhpowee, So the force that causes mushrooms to push up from the earth overnight, or should it be actually quote unquote overnight? I love this because it means that nature puts so much work and effort, and the mushroom underneath the fungi or whatever is growing and it's taking some time and it's really invisible, right? For the outside world, for the human on top, you cannot see anything. And then suddenly, quote unquote, a full freaking mushroom is there. How crazy is that? I just love it. And I feel like this is such a beautiful metaphor about doing the work, the spiritual work, like working on your limiting beliefs, your mind's conditioning, and everything else. Sometimes it feels like this work is invisible, right? You do all the journaling or the meditation, all the shadow integration, however you want to call it, but it kind of feels in vain if you don't see anything changing, let's say, in your reality. But I feel like at some point you just experience this moment that even though the situation is very trivial, suddenly it's like, oh my God, hey, for example, the comment of this person totally didn't disturb me, which used to be very much how it was. Or I don't know, what my mom said didn't trigger me this time. I was able to really answer compassionately and not just be triggered into this habitual way of responding and thinking, or that something that you feared for a long time felt like impossible for you to do, and suddenly you're just like doing it out of nowhere again. So Puhpowee for me is very much a movement, not only the movement of the literal mushroom, but a movement of how you and me we can see reality. And actually this is what I want my brand to stand for, both the podcast that I'm doing here, both the clothing brand, that it's all about cherishing the inner growth of your inner mushroom, if you could imagine that all this seemingly invisible work to the outside world suddenly feels like, oh wow, you're like totally different person, or wow, how did you get there, you know? So it's really in honor and in awe of all of you actually that are putting the work. And you know that work is not actually fun sometimes, nor easy. Sometimes it is, but actual work and practice of breaking down those old ways of being that are very much unconscious, it takes sometimes a lot of effort and a lot of awareness to change anything from inside out. So my goal is that Puhpowee becomes kind of a community where you can meet the fellow seekers and beers, that group of people where you can share this inner growth with, that understand, people that also align with their highest timeline and just trust the path as it unfolds. And usually the path is invisible, just as the mushroom before it is actually there when you're already standing. But that's the hardest part, right? You need to take the steps which always or often feel like you're stepping into the void. There are so like more questions than answers for sure. So Puhpowee, it's such a beautiful, beautiful word describing nature, right? It literally tells us about the power that pushes a mushroom from the soil and suddenly it's just part of the outside world. And I guess the other part why I'm so mesmerized by this word is because everything we can do internally and all of the concepts that can be explained by philosophy or religion or whatever it is, it's already out there in the nature. Like those forces are already there and we are just trying to make sense of our own existence. And I feel like it's so much easier to just go into the world, into the nature and just be there, because I feel like subconsciously we just like get it, you know? When you're there, you see that, wow, there are actually like so many things are similar, like the cycles of day and night and rain and the sun, and that everything is so interconnected. I don't know, it's really beautiful. Now I will tell you a little bit the story, how it even like came to my mind. When I started Googling for it, I think there's only one source that mentions it, but it's already after I get to know it. After the Vipassana experience, if you didn't hear, it's my first episode, so you can hear more about it there. After our course ended, after 10 days, we had a group of like 10 girls, and majority of us, we actually kind of coincidentally, we were staying in this little town or little city not so far away from the meditation center. I think it was, I don't know, like 30-minute taxi drive. And the town was called San Cristobal de las Casas in Mexico, in Chiapas. It was this little beautiful town, very charming, filled with just amazing atmosphere and beautiful architecture and amazing lively vibes. But also, I don't know if I can tell that this was just a city. I was coming out of 10 days of silence, so probably no matter where I would go, everything would feel like a lively, beautiful place. Anyway, Some of us, we were staying there. It was such a funny experience, actually. We just arrived to this new town, and because all of us, we had like separate accommodation booked, it was funny because like sometimes we just like stumbled into each other and we were like, hi. It was so fun, and it felt like, wow, it was such an experience as if I were living in the city, because suddenly I almost had 10 friends spread across the city that I could just grab dinner with this person and go for a walk with this person. It was really fun. One day, three of us, we decided to go and explore, to do a tour. I'll be honest, I'm usually not a fan of tours, but it offered an adventure to go and see this huge canyon that was not so far away from where we were staying, but it needed us to go on like 1 hour or 2 hour bus drive. So it was really easy to just, or way easier to just have it all organized. So we decided, okay, let's go. So one morning, I woke up in my Airbnb, I packed all my stuff. It looked like it was going to be a really beautiful day, but this is just Mexico in European winter. It's kind of nice weather, right? So I was just getting ready and I was really excited. And I went to the meeting point where I met with two other girls that were joining from our meditation group. People were gathering and we were always ready to go. And actually, now I'm trying to remember if all of this happened on the way to the canyon, or was it the other way around? But I think no, it was in the first way. Probably you know this moment, right? When you start talking with someone and suddenly it just feels like such a flow, everything is happening. You have so many like bizarre feelings inside of you, like almost like you remember that this conversation already happened. It's very bizarre. Like you could question with the thinking brain, right? Oh, why? But I kind of sometimes like to just give into this magical part of life that is so special to stumble upon. So I remember we still had such a long way to drive. We were sitting at the back of the bus and we were just talking about kind of everything. We didn't talk much before. She was sharing some stories with me about travels and relationships and how she did some performances and her exhibitions and art she was working on. And one thing led to another. I don't know if we started talking about ayahuasca or I think we started talking about ayahuasca and plant medicine, and suddenly she pulled out this book that she was reading. And I was like, oh, I remember this book. I saw a cover of it somewhere. It was called Braiding Sweetgrass. I picked up the book that the girl gave to me, and it's funny. I probably at this point you know where I'm going with this. I opened it on freaking specific spot one, and there it was. Out of I don't know how many pages the book has, I'm assuming at least around 300. And out of all of those pages and all of the moments that my eyes could stumble upon, there it was, the word Puhpowee. And even saying this right now, it has such an incredible load of energy. I'm like getting goosebumps just thinking about what are the odds of this happening. Like imagine me, suddenly I'm in middle of Mexico, going through some rough roads in Chiapas, going to some canyon with basically strangers. And by the way, one of the girl that I'm talking with, we just did like 10 days of silent meditation with, and she gives me this book that she has with her, and the first page I open and actual words that I'm looking at is the word Puhpowee. It was really beautiful. At the moment I knew that, wow, this is so cool. I love it. I think I took a picture or a note. Actually, I don't remember how it orbited and how it sticked with me from there on, but I was like, oh my god, this is beautiful. So that's the story how the Puhpowee word found me, because it really felt like this, one of those moments. And I love words so much because they are kind of portals into the way you see reality, or what's your sensitivity for the world inside and outside. I think there's this very well known example of people living in different weather conditions and suddenly having so much more words for specific weather conditions that when you're not exposed to those, you would just have a saying, oh, it's raining, right? It just rain, or it's just snowing, it just snow. And specific people and communities, when they are exposed to way more of that conditions, suddenly they have way richer vocabulary around this because they are dependent and immersed and thinking about this way more. So they need the vocabulary to reflect the richness of the experience they see. I feel like the easiest way to explore that, or just imagine, is like with if you had a banana, an apple, and grapes in front of you, you could say it's just fruits, right? This is very generic category. But when you know the difference, hey, like banana and apple, okay, it is a fruit, but it's not at all the same. I mean, it sounds so obvious when I say about this example, but imagine actually you have way richer experience of tasting the fruit and knowing the difference, that of course it is fruit, but it's not the same at all. And I feel the same goes for the words that are describing those broader concepts that are maybe not so easily graspable with your mind. I'm really mesmerized by the fact that, for example, in ancient Greece, if I'm not mistaken, there were around 30 words that would describe love. There were 30 types of love. And now, like, you know, of course, everyone knows that the love that you feel for your parents, it's way different than the love that you feel toward your partner, and very different to what you feel toward your pets, your cat and your dog. Yet we have very limited words to describe and express. And of course, we can still feel the difference inside, but we are not able to easily express it with different words. We just have one. And I guess I'm very drawn to how actually the language is just such a mirror of your own consciousness and awareness and your sensitivity to the world. I gave this example to my mom. She's a great cook and she bakes just amazing cakes. And we were just talking about this the other day, and that this was maybe easier for me to understand, like someone that is not so into baking, probably the type of cake you just eat cake, right? You don't think much about this, but like the type of the dough or the cake itself can be so different. I don't know the words actually in English to describe all of the types, but in Polish we have so many different types of the dough or the pastry that you could call, right? So for my mom, it's very obvious when she says this type of cake or this type of cake. She already knows it experientially, both from tasting and making it, and for her it's like just no-brainer, right? But for me, when I'm eating a cake, maybe this is not the first thing I'm thinking about. Anyway, this being said, words are magical. I love words, and I guess the word Puhpowee is really one of those that probably will be there with me till the rest of my life. I just love how it explains seemingly trivial process that is happening in the nature. Like the mushroom is not like overcomplicating it, it just happens. And I love that people that used to live way closer to nature had words for processes like this. I don't know, it's just mesmerizing. So that's the story of Puhpowee. That's what it stands for. That's how it came into my life. My podcast kinda Puhpoweed out of nowhere. Actually, it was another story of course, chain of events, how it all came to be. But in the way, like it was working underground for such long, like I had the intention, I knew that it would be fun, but of course there are 1,000 limiting beliefs, there's the self-sabotage, there's not taking action, but suddenly there is the breaking point and it just Puhpowees. Actually, I don't know if you've read the book Atomic Habits by James Clear. I've read it a long time ago, but I remember this one specific analogy that kind of relates to the Puhpowee moment. He mentioned the story of an ice cube. I mean, literal ice cube. How, for example, when you're starting from minus 30 and you increase the temperature by 1 degree, it feels like nothing is changing, right? Like minus 29, or minus 28, minus 27. You get the drill, right? It just goes one by one by one. And externally, it feels, wow, still an ice cube, so probably nothing is changing. But surprise, surprise, when it hits minus 1 and the next increase is to 0 and the next one is to 1, suddenly, quote unquote, you have freaking water. There's no ice cube anymore. But it's the same concept. And for me, this is so inspiring to think about. So if you right now in your life feel discouraged because the reality around you is not changing, just think about this ice cube. Think about this mushroom, that it's growing and the temperature is increasing. Yes, you still don't see the mushroom, you just see soil, you just see the ground, and you just see an ice cube, and you might be like, oh, the heck with this. I'm not doing this anymore. But just remember that actually this is the invisible work. This is actually the work. Work is not only doing the work, it's also believing that the work will finally Puhpowee, that suddenly the ice cube will be melted at some point. So you just need to keep on going. Just keep on going. And just take a minute to congratulate all the work you put into the journey you're on. The journey into the center of self, the journey of exploration and trusting and the unknown, and that you are changing. Maybe it's invisible from when you're sitting, but also maybe you're not asking the right questions on how you can measure the change. Maybe there are other things from just 0 or 1 of the mushroom is out or the ice cube is melted that you could see and actually, I appreciate that. Wow, a lot of things are changing. That being said, I really appreciate you. Thank you for listening and join the movement actually. But if you're listening, you're already in the movement, kinda. But feel free to share it with others. If you feel with anyone that is in your circle, that message would be valuable. Feel free to share. I don't know, click some follows or whatever it is on whatever app is that you're using. Probably it will help to spread the word. And also stay tuned for the release of the long sleeves for the Puhpowee. I'm super excited. I'm super grateful that you've been here. Thank you for your attention and time, and I wish you a beautiful, beautiful rest of your day. Bye!